this is just our baseline page about working group number one, and we I think most everybody in this group knows what it's about, but we're focused on recreational and short range aircraft in the U.S. A lot of that falls under Part 103, which is for ultralight aircraft, and also Part 91 regulations for private aircraft. That could pertain to corporate use. So private use in this case would uh, still include corporate use for corporate transportation within a company, that sort of thing, and recreational travel. And we're always looking for new contributors like you, people that will be active and people that know this business or are interested in learning about it that can contribute to our white paper and our discussions. So please spread the word among your colleagues and friends that we're looking for people, even if they just want to jump in and attend. We think we're a lot of fun, so that's what matters. So I put together a presentation for today about market adoption, and what we're going to look at is some slides and sort of projections for what market adoption looks like in all new technologies, and then I'll try to cater it a little bit towards what we're going to be working towards in our business, particularly the Part 103 ultralight aircraft and the migration towards more mainstream utilization. So this is sort of the core building block to everything we'll talk about today, which is um, the technology S curve, and all it is it just says that instead of linear growth over time, which we see at the bottom axis, growth occurs more slowly at first, and then as adoption increases, word of mouth increases, media mentions increase, then there's an accelerating adoption through the middle of the growth lifespan, and then things slow towards the end as we start to sell the product to as many people as we can sell it to. And so this has been kind of divided out into sections. The innovators are first, and then our early adopters, our early majority, then a later majority, and laggards. So these are different types of customers that have different attitudes about the product, and they have different buying patterns as a result of those attitudes. And the way that we can make our product successful is based on how we're able to market towards these different slices of the market, and we have to pay attention to them because they behave very differently, and there's some traps we can get caught in if we're not paying attention to this, and we'll talk about that a little bit today. So in the past, these are some of the technology S curves, and this is just specific to the United States. They're not perfect curves, but you can see over time, there's a slower growth at first, and then accelerating, and then slowing as market penetration reaches 100%. Now, if you look over kind of towards the right from 1960 on, those S curves look pretty similar. They're a little wobbly though on the left-hand side of this chart, and that's because we had the Great Depression in the United States from 1929 on for several years, right up until World War II started, and World War II was cranking along and causing shortages and economic disruptions until 1945. So you can see kind of right after World War II, everything picks up again, but there's a lot of disruption to the technology S curve due to geopolitical and financial situations earlier on. But anyway, most technologies follow this S curve. And if we could take this S curve and plot it as a bell curve as well, which is what is shown in this chart right here, and we can still see at the bottom, we've got the innovators are first, and then early adopters, then the early majority, the late majority, and the laggards, the people that purchase things last. So it's the same. It's the same as the S curve. It's just plotted as a bell curve, but same customer sections. And if we look where things really start to take off, where people really start to buy a lot of iPhones, or microwaves or washing machines, whatever the new technology is, it's kind of after the innovators and the early adopters have purchased them and have talked about them and have made some noise about it, and the product is ready for the majority. It's a product ready for households, and it doesn't require special knowledge. You don't have to be a techie to operate it. That's when things really start to take off. So right at that spot between early adopters and the early majority is where the growth curve really starts to blast. And so we want to pay attention to who these people are and how they behave. And so I won't go through everything here, but it's important for us to kind of be thinking about the fact that on the front end, we've got the innovators who are risk takers. They're okay with the financial and physical risk, and the early adopters who are people that want to be first. They want to be kind of known. Their personal identity is they want to be known as the person who knows about these things and is knowledgeable and talks to others about it. But the early majority and the late majority, that's more mainstream market. That might be, instead of us being the early adopters, it might be our folks that, they're not tech people. They just want something that works. And the early majority, if we're solving a problem for them, they'll take action, and the late majority will kind of uh, um, act when kind of when they have to. So this is just sort of a quick summary of these different sections. The innovators will join when it's new because it's a thing and because they think it's cool. Early adopters will jump in when there's a benefit. Early majority when there's a productivity gain, and the laggards and late majority kind of when they have to, when it's spoon fed to them. So in the eVTOL world, the innovators might be people that are like us. They just love it. They want to fly it. They don't care if it has a lot of purpose. They want to do it. Early adopters could be somebody that has a country home that they want to be able to move to and from easily, and they've got a purpose, but they want to do it for fun as well. And then the early majority, they might be commuters. They're not really aviation people like we are, but they want to get to work and they want a productivity gain, and so they'll use it for a purpose. So these are our kind of sections that we're looking at, and we want to think about how do we move through these sections and through the innovators, early adopters onto the early majority and late majority, because that's where the lion's share of our customers are waiting for us. And so how do we get there? Now, at the same time that all that is going on, we also have what's called the hype curve going on. So when there's a new type of technology, especially when it's an exciting one like ours, that's an innovation trigger is it gets out to the press that this is a new thing. People say, "Wow, this is great. This is how I'm going to get to work every day. It's going to be just like the Jetsons." And they start to think about, "My gosh, I'm not going to have to drive anymore. I'm going to have one of these in the garage." And that's the peak of inflated expectations. We say this is going to change the world immediately. How could it not? But then over time, reality sets in. We've got regulations to deal with. Not everybody can operate this out of their yard. In the United States, we have to be over in congested areas. We have to have a single pilot aircraft if we aren't certified. So and we all have battery limitations these days. So that then we kind of move down to the trough of disillusionment where we say, well, wait a minute, there's some reality here that is going to make this not as quick and as spectacular as we had all hoped it would be. And after we pass through that, then we say, well, this is still a great solution. We know what we need to do now to get through these issues. We need, better battery life. We need to work through regulation issues, or we need to certify our aircraft. And we move up the slope of enlightenment to the plateau of productivity, which is where we hopefully will all wind up eventually. So if we plot the hype curve on the adoption curve, then we can kind of see when this is overlaid, okay, the trough of disillusionment, that's our hardest part on the hype curve. That's when everybody's going, oh my gosh, there's so much work to do. Is this really going to be able to ever do what we'd hoped it was going to do? That kind of happens right as we're moving from the early adopters to the early majority. So there's a big jump there as we try to move through to where the lion's share of the customers are. That's also where we're having the most challenge in terms of how people are thinking about this new solution. And so for a couple of reasons, there's what's called a chasm between the early adopters, the early market, and the mainstream market. And there's a great book, and I'll have some information at the end about it, called Crossing the Chasm by Jeffrey Moore, that is sort of about this situation. And let's talk about like what causes the chasm. Um, you've got the you know there's starting to be sort of we're in the trough of disillusionment section of the hype curve, so people are starting to say, well, is this what we'd hoped it would be? And we're moving through innovators and early adopters to the early majority, and these are different types of people. And so we have to focus on what types of people they are to keep things moving so that we don't get stuck in the chasm, because new tech companies do fall into the chasm and they don't recover sometimes. So let's talk about how do we make the jump, and what are the differences in the types of people that are early adopters and early majority, because that's super important. So there's a lot of words here, but this is just kind of an overview of what are the attributes of these two types of people: the early adopters that might be like us, that are, in our case, aviation aficionados, and people that just love to fly and want to be in the air, and the mainstream market, which might be our parents or, cousins who, just not really that into this stuff, but would like a solution. If it's me as an early adopter, I say, wow, this aircraft is so cool, I want to fly it. I'm an aviation guy, this is part of who I am, I need to have this. It's just seems super fun. I'm okay, if I get take a bang on the head or I lose a little money, it doesn't matter. This is who I am. I need to have one of these, and I want to have one of the first ones. So if it's a little buggy, that's fine. I'm a tech guy. I like this stuff, so I'll help them out. I'm going to make this decision uh, emotionally. I want to have this. It doesn't have to make any sense. This could be a Harley Davidson. I'm not going to be able to drive my family around to this thing. I just want to have it. I'm a Harley guy, for example. It's who I am, and that's how early adopters make their decisions. But that's very different from the mainstream market. They're looking for a product that serves a purpose. It's not who they are. It's not a motorcycle. It's a minivan. So they need something to get to work and to haul lawn chairs around and to get the kids to and from school and soccer. It needs to serve a specific purpose and provide a solution and be safe, stable, and predictable. These are people that make their decision completely differently. It's not an emotional decision. It's a spreadsheet edition a decision that they're going to make it based on logic. And so the way that we address these people in the product that is acceptable to them is very different. If you're an early adopter, you can sell them a product that has exposed bolts and wires. They're fine with that. In fact, they might even want to work on it themselves. If you're mainstream market, it needs to have upholstery and it's got to have cup holders. It's a different mindset and a different product. So how do we jump this chasm? We're looking at where we all are today. We're kind of creating products for early adopters. We're using innovation and creativity, and to cross over to the mainstream market, we need to think about what is the problem that we're going to solve for them. What are their problems that need to be solved, and how do we solve them? And we need to create a product that is user friendly, that solves those problems, and then over time prove to them that we're a good company, we have a good product, it's safe, and the concept has been proven. And so I have a couple examples of companies that have crossed the chasm, and Apple is a great one that we all know of. But what a lot of people don't know about is the Apple One computer, and that's what's on the lower left of the screen. The Apple One was a kit. It wasn't a finished computer. It was a circuit board, and you had to supply your own everything other than the circuit board. So, keyboard, monitor, memory, that sort of thing. This was for technology people. This was not for someone that was looking to do a spreadsheet. Um, but that was their starting product. They made a little bit of money. They learned what they needed to learn. And to cross that chasm, Apple made a customer friendly, user ready product called the Apple II. And that's what we see on the right. It's got disk drives, it's got the keyboard, it's got the monitor, it's ready to go. You can do VisiCalc to do your spreadsheets on it on day one. It's ready to go for the early majority. And that's how they crossed the chasm. Another example of a company trying to cross the chasm that did not make it was General Motors with their EV1 electric car. It's not particularly attractive. It looks like an egg with wheels. They wanted to put their toe in the water, but they didn't really have a plan to get to the mass market. So this was a car that it didn't go particularly far. I think it was 50 or 60 miles. It had to have a special charger in your garage, so you couldn't just plug it into the wall. You had to have special equipment, and there wasn't really anywhere else you could go other than your garage and the special equipment to charge the car. So its usage was limited, and so people were um, into the tech or into the environment. The visionaries that's okay, this is a great future. I want to set an example for uh, what I can be doing for the environment. They bought into this concept, but GM didn't have a bridge to get to the 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 majority, the mainstream market. And without a bridge, the product didn't make it, and they ended up repossessing and crushing all the cars, which was a shame. However, similarly, Tesla also had a car that they launched that initially didn't have the longest range. It initially could only be charged up in your garage, but you could use a regular outlet, and they made it an attractive car. They used a Lotus frame, so they made it more something that regular Joe would want to own, that seemed kind of intriguing and interesting. So it had a draw for people beyond the early adopters. And what they did to cross the chasm was they built out the supercharger network. That made it so that the the vehicle was usable, it had range, it had ability for the regular person so that they could see, okay, this has advantages beyond just being something that's environmentally friendly or going to save me on a little money on gas. This is a really cool car that I can actually use and I can actually go on a road trip. And they successfully crossed the chasm that way. So what do we need to be thinking about to cross the chasm? Uh, we have to move beyond the sort of the hype and excitement on the front end of a new technology to something that is practical and usable by regular Joe and Jane. In our business, in the eVTOL business, we need to be thinking long term about something that's a certified aircraft. This is beyond Part 103 to something that could have multiple passengers, that could be used to go to work or go out with friends, or just do the things that we're used to doing beyond just one person. And a good example of this kind of transition is how Tesla generated cash flow and buzz and excitement and interest with the Roadster, even though it had some limited usability issues. But they parlayed that name recognition and product recognition and success and that cash flow into more mainstream products, and therefore more financially accessible products that were more mainstream friendly. Crossing into the chasm requires building a strong product reputation. So this is our time, even though we have a product that might be catered just towards the early market, the early adopters. This is the opportunity to build product reputation in the same way that Apple and Tesla did on the front end, as a solid product. How do we do that? We want to define and aggressively pursue the unique selling proposition of that product. What is it that makes it great? Why is this different? Why is this amazing? Product and customer the support has to be fantastic. So I remember when I bought my first Dell computer, they did a few things that just like stunned me in terms of customer support. Product was great, was easy to use. I told friends about that. I told a lot of friends, and that's what we're shooting for, is raving fans. We don't want to stop at just wow. We want to keep going. Walt Disney made his movies great by always saying, how can we plus it? How can we one up this? How can we do this one better? And that's the way to be thinking about product. And then similarly, organization name recognition is important too. So to build that, and especially in our business, we need to prioritize safety. If we think about a airline called ValueJet, I might be dating myself here, but a lot of us immediately think, ooh, yikes. You have a bad accident in this business, and you don't get to keep your name, and you certainly don't get to keep your reputation. And also, safety is the right thing to do. We have a huge responsibility to our customers and the public at large to actively, consistently focus on safety and keeping our customers and the public safe. And that in turn will keep the organization name safe. Needs to be a memorable name, something that rolls off the tongue. Nouns are good. Things like Apple, it's hard to forget that one, or unique names like Tesla. We want to have an organizational culture that under promises and over delivers. And we want to have a brand position. Where do we want to live in the space of customers' minds? Decide upfront and then pursue that through our communications and our actions. And then finally, I wanted to talk about whether we can accelerate market adoption. And it turns out we kind of can. And I just saw a great article, and I'll include the link at the end of this. That was entitled, "You're much more likely to buy an electric vehicle if you've ever had a ride in one." And it was citing research that said the percentage of Americans that say they would definitely buy an EV more than tripled over the past 2 years. And the reason for that is those people had an opportunity to be in one. Just trying it out made the difference for them. So the majority of the people who said they would buy an EV had been a passenger in one, and that makes a big difference. And that's something that we can control by creating opportunities for people to experience our aircraft. In the case of EVs, it turned out that the accelerant for them can be car rental fleets. By pushing their electric vehicles into car rental fleets, that will give an opportunity to a lot of people that wouldn't have the chance already to try the vehicle. And because we know that once they try it, they're going to like it. It's going to give market exposure and allow them to potentially convert to happy customers. And this is what we're kind of shooting for, is we want to pull that bell curve over towards today. So that we've got time at the bottom axis here. We want to sell as many products as we can, as early as we can, always in sales. So the way that we pull that bell curve to the left, closer to the present, is by letting customers try this product, to build word of mouth, to build social media. They're going to video trying their aircraft or this product. They're going to share that with friends. They're going to talk to people about how cool it is. And they themselves are potentially customers because they've had a chance to try it out. And so that's how we pull the market adoption closer to the present than the distant future. So these are some of the things I cited today. This is the link to the article that I mentioned. Everett Rogers did a book called Diffusion of Innovation, where he initially outlined these customer segments. And then building on that, Jeffrey Moore did a great book called Crossing the Chasm. And I've quoted a lot of his work in this presentation as well. To finish up, I have a quick 4-minute video narrated by Jeffrey Moore. And he's just talking about how he found a visual representation of how this sort of market progression can look, and he does an explanation of it. And it's an old video from years ago on YouTube, and then he made a YouTube video of it, and then I'm grabbing it from YouTube. So the video quality is crap. Just think of it as a bunch of still images, but listen to what he's saying. That's the most important thing here.
From time to time I'm asked, does the crossing the chasm phenomenon apply to consumer markets? And the answer is, in some parts, yes, and in some parts it plays out a bit differently. I'm going to show you, I want to talk about a video here which sort of shows you the dynamics of how chasms play out in consumer markets in a way that really does accord with the original theory. So let me start by starting the video here. This is of a dancing man at the Sasquatch Music Festival in 2009. This is a video that had some 550,000 downloads on YouTube. And let's just look at it as an opportunity to test out the chasm theory. So here we have our man dancing in the middle of a field. Now you can see he's trying to get people involved. This is an entrepreneurial action. And he's demonstrating how one can really get into this music, admittedly through his own personal interpretation, but he's definitely doing it. And if you'll notice, the people around him, they're studiously ignoring him. Girl walks by him completely, makes no eye contact. Another person, nothing. So he's doing it. He's not stopping. Now he's trying to recruit somebody here. You guys come in and play. No. Maybe my fly was down. Anyway, that was an entrepreneur being rejected. And does he hang his head in shame? Does he quit? No, look at him. He's absolutely committed to his entrepreneurial exercise. This is the right thing to do. He believes in himself. He believes in what he's doing. But again, nobody is buying his act. But he's not stopping. He's got other moves. He's working it. And so this move, we're almost a third of the way through the video. Now think about this if you're an entrepreneur. You've had to stay true to yourself for a third of your entire effort, and nothing's happened. Now look here, all of a sudden we've got a second person. This is his first customer, probably a technology enthusiast. If you'll notice, they're equally gifted at dancing. Both of them are definitely more with the head maybe than with the body, but they're doing it. And the second guy is in. He's like many early customers, he's at least as enthusiastic as the entrepreneur. And he's even copying some of the moves. And we got another one. Now we're still, if you'll notice, this is still nerds, frankly. This is sort of like Big Bang Theory for three people. There are no actual women involved yet, but we're doing something, and everybody's this guy's now so excited he's willing to go. Up here come two more. So now we're getting. Oh, this is beginning to look like a party. And now look, two women come into this thing. This is really. Oh, here comes some more. This thing is definitely getting some early market momentum. Notice the people in the foreground, whoever, aren't buying anything. They're just still looking, don't know what's going on over here. Still pre-chasm, but you can feel that things are starting to break down. People are running in. They don't want to start getting left out. That's the pragmatist herd. Pragmatist people want to stay out until it's safe to go in, and then they all rush in. And now what we're watching is the actual transition from a chasm to a tornado, in which case more and more people start pouring into the field. It gets harder and harder to be the people sitting down. They're now realizing they've kind of actually missed out here. They're still being true to their conservative roots, but look at the crowds of people coming in here. And all of a sudden, we now have the equivalent of a whole new market that never existed. Look, people on the other side are noticing them. This is the entire market fruition. And this is what entrepreneurs dream of creating as they go forward in life. And remember, the first third to a half of this phenomenon took place with just one guy sitting dancing in a field, trying to get people to buy in and now you can't even see that guy. It's become a mass movement. Whereas, as the video says, it just takes one person to get the party started.
All right, what did we think? Is anybody even on this group?
Loved it.
All right, good. I halfway through, I was like, I asked everybody to mute, so I can't hear anything. It's possible that my internet connection just died a minute into this, and I'm just giving this to myself.
So, Andy, I'll just chime in briefly.
Yeah.
First, I think the whole time you were showing the S curve, I was thinking to myself, okay, what do we do when we get to this phase where some of us have been doing this for a long time, and we have some people come in and all of a sudden expect immediate success, right? And so when you got to the stage of the term or the title, crossing the chasm, I said, oh, that's brilliant, so well defined, because I was struggling myself at the S curve thinking, do we care about those people, or is it something that we even need to acknowledge? We've seen that with the internet, cryptocurrency. All of a sudden people come along, why am I not getting 10x returns on my crypto? It's like they don't understand this has been long in the works, and just because you come in immediately and expect those. So I think that S curve and crossing the chasm is just brilliant. So, and we need to think about how do we and that's where I was kind of struggling. How do we integrate those people that are coming on board but may not have been a part of this for the last decade, like some of us have? So I thought it was really opening to even stimulate some of the thinking on that topic.
Yeah, good. I'm glad. Dwight, what did you think?
No, I get that. I mean, I was just thinking I've been a part of that very crowd about 25 years ago.
Yeah, you've done this before, right?
I have, yeah. Yeah. We're in a different environment, but there's still applications here. And we, in the case of our company, we're broken down into 3 segments. One having to deal mostly with government as our customer, and then industry, and then the consumer. So we're developing some things that the consumer can use as well to accent and promote our company image and our company purpose. So watching that video, just the human conscious is interesting in that way.
Yeah, totally. Kesuke, do you have any thoughts about how that pertains to your team's work at SkyDrive?
Yeah, it's it's quite interesting as well. So like we are still like sort of like early adopters, like focus on at the moment, but like for example like the BD from like my side, like we are focusing on more like mid to long term goals as well. So there's difference between the R&D who is focusing on the immediate market and what's the immediate needs for the customers versus the where we try to put the sort of like milestones and the goals of like, for example, like 25 or 2030s. So there's big difference on what's the sort of like customer expectation and what's the public perception as well. Like for example, like in Japan, like we are focusing on the Expo in Osaka in 2025, where we all want to launch the sort of like urban air mobility from the Japan side, as well as inviting like, for example, like Joby, the volocopters and the vertical aerospace and stuff. So where we can sort of showcasing, but that's a big difference between what we will be able to do and what the expectation and also the regulation comes like big plays in this market as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, there's going to be especially I've noticed, especially in the Part 103 space in the US, there's going to be I think all the organizations working in that space will feel sort of a big gap, and that's why I wanted to do this presentation, is to kind of point that out, that there's going to need to be some big jumps here that need to get made to leap into the mass market, because we've got just some really cool, amazing technology. But could I get my mom on some of these aircraft? I don't think so. Not right now. But these same companies will make vehicles that mom will get onto. The first Honda motorcycle it kind of looked like a bicycle with a little motor installed on it, and that's kind of what it was. It was super functional. And it's been many years, but I've had a Honda minivan. It was like, it had like 10 cup holders. It was super functional. Companies get there. It's just a matter of managing that, and if they don't manage it and pay attention to these market segments, then they can fall into the chasm. And you've got companies like Fisker Automotive that they didn't really seem to cross over. They had some cool tech stuff, but they weren't able to make the jump, and went into bankruptcy. And I think there'll be companies in this space that might not transition well, and so I'm hoping we can all kind of help each other to look out for this, and be aware of it, and move through together. Michael, towards that end, do you have any thoughts on what we can be doing as an industry to kind of help each other along?
I was just thinking of even maybe a more special topic on that, on this session, kind of like an open forum with some of those industry members,
Yeah.
bring them in and just kind of talk through that, because a lot of times what we're seeing, unfortunately, on some of these NASA and FAA calls, it can be one-sided a lot of the time. And this is one of those topics where I feel like we have to have just very much an open forum discussion topic on that. So maybe we do at one of the next TVF sessions, maybe it's with all the working groups, you know, we have a special topic there and just call it an open forum discussion and make sure some of our more industry members, you know, traditional and non-traditional, are there for that. I think that could go a long way.
Yeah, well, that's a great idea. It's a great idea. I like it. Good. Any other thoughts or comments about the presentation? Well, let me know if you have any questions. Dwight, did you have a question?
No, my take on this for working group number one is, you know, we have these wonderful and great vehicles that are coming out. Tremendous interest, as we all know, in the industry, our new industry here, so to speak. So it seems to me there needs to be some discussions or language for emergency services in that small of a vehicle. Kind of like your discussion about a Harley Davidson, you know, penetrating the market. And well, think of a Harley Davidson police motorcycle in the same context with a recreational sized vehicle has multiple applications. So if I'm a private owner and I'm going to work every day in my Jetson recreational vehicle, and I see an emergency situation, or I can be of assistance, how can we address that?
I agree
Or
100%.
at least to create the mindset in the recreational operator that it's okay for me to help somebody if that's the case. Or
Yeah.
I see somebody stealing a car, or I mean, no telling what's going to happen once this all plays out and people start using these on a regular basis. You know, what are the at least I'm having a discussion about those kinds of things that plays into the recreational ownership and operation, safety and airworthiness of my machine. So that's my take on it. It's kind of like we're adopting working group number 4 into a small discussion into working group number 1 with these recreational vehicles. So that's really why I wanted to jump in, Andrew, and just put down a few things that I think could be helpful.
Yeah, no, I'm a big believer in the public safety space for these aircraft. I did a presentation, you know, just about utilization of 103 and did an overview of, you know, what 103 regulations say for civilian use, and then tried to touch on when you know, when can these aircraft also be used on the public safety side, meaning, you know, military and state and local government and that sort of thing.
The Air Force just came out with a broadcast, or at least a discussion. They're now looking for pilot rescue vehicles. They realize that these giant rescue helicopters are big moving targets now in this new space that we're in of drone fighting.
Yeah.
So that's perhaps a solution, having a low cost, lightweight pilot rescue vehicle.
Totally.
So quick question on that topic, Dwight, from a regulation standpoint or traffic management standpoint, how would the classification change if you went from a recreation vehicle? I love the idea, by the way. I'm just trying to think through it from a regulation and traffic management standpoint to then be reclassified as some type of medevac, which would, in this case, need to give you the priority.
You know, there's that airspace discussion again.
Right.
It's a blending. It's almost a blending of two sets of rules. So that's you just have to put these things into play and create your statement of work so that we all have some discussions, valid discussions, and we start to implement and create milestones. We're working with the 911 call center just to learn more about some of their needs, and so their biggest desire is when they get a big wreck on the highway, they have no idea if it's one car, 100 cars. So they don't really know what to send out in terms of assisting that emergency. Same thing with a car accident or with a fire or so there's some discussion about how can we better service that particular need with just the 911 callers and training and making assets available to assist them, in the emergency world. Anyway, it's obviously a lot of discussions to have and concepts to create, and but I feel like there's a wide open space for emergency vehicles in that recreational size, recreational regulations.
I do too. I noticed that in Johnny Dew's, and I think you're in working group 4, so you're part of that team.
Yeah.
In that paper, he did include some Part 103, aircraft that would be otherwise Part 103 compliant. For example, Lift Aircraft is a company down in Austin, Texas, and they make an 18 rotor single operator Part 103 compliant aircraft called Hexa. And so Johnny's got a photo of Hexa in that paper in just working in a rescue capacity. And so the way I think about the working groups being sort of set up is that I think about it being more about the function of the utilization as opposed to the specific aircraft that are used. And so for us in working on recreational, I don't think the size of the regulations matter so much of what fits in that. It's just more about what is the purpose of the use. And that's why we've relegated the public safety and rescue operations type of writing to working group 4, because I think your team has tried to, regardless of the aircraft size, whether it's single operator or multi, to focus on what needs to be done there. And that's but by the way, I'm a huge believer in it, and I 100% agree with you that you could use a small aircraft to, for example, you can roll an ambulance and a fire truck at the same time that you roll a single operator or a single paramedic in a Part 103 type aircraft, and the paramedic can get there and triage and say, oh, you know what we didn't know is this, that, and the other thing. There's 3 cars on fire, and I'm going to need 2 more ambulances. Or they get there and they say, this is not a big deal.
Part of the 911 effort was to send out a drone.
Yeah.
Quickly. So that there's eyes on the scene to allow 911 and public services to know what to send out.
I love that. And I think even one better than that is if we have a single paramedic on scene that can start triage immediately.
Yeah.
We just have a few minutes left.
Hey, Andrew,
yep.
I don't want to hijack the last few minutes, but we have a 2-minute video that goes through a lot of these topics, specifically data and reasoning fabric. I can drop it in the chat for some of you guys to take a look at. I could even play it now, but I think it would be just something for each of you to take a look at, specifically.
Let's play it.
You want to play it? All right.
Yeah, we got 2 minutes.
All right, let's do it.
I couldn't get the chat to work anyway. It just isn't showing up in my menu for some reason.
All right, let's do it this way.
Shape society, enabling social interactions and economic opportunities.
Yes.
Advanced air mobility offers the promise of on-demand air transportation for people and cargo that can dramatically increase the capacity of our transportation system, reducing delays, reducing the impact on the environment, and improving the quality of modern life. To keep these air vehicles operating safely in close quarters, thousands, if not millions of decisions will need to be made in the vehicles, on the edge, and in the cloud. Decision-making, by either humans or machines, can only occur with current, accurate, and secure data. Diverse and dynamic data on the status of travelers, cargo, weather, ground infrastructure, flight infrastructure, and vehicles are needed wherever these decisions are made. Privacy, noise, and safety constraints must also be available. To achieve this, we must enable a shift to a web-like ecosystem to support advanced air mobility, a data and reasoning fabric, or DRF. DRF must provide an architectural framework for data and reasoning exchanges that efficiently and securely match supply and demand for data and enable reasoning services. Our team is developing a DRF accelerator, which includes prototype instantiations of key DRF features, including data and reasoning services, a DRF marketplace software architecture, and other required functions sufficient to engage end users. We will exercise the DRF accelerator with representatives of key service providers and end-user stakeholder communities in order to demonstrate that the DRF accelerator provides key data and reasoning functions needed to enable advanced air mobility goals. DRF will allow us to quickly find, verify, purchase, and securely use data from data providers and reasoning services owned by many small and large industry and government organizations. By enabling a vibrant and secure virtual commercial marketplace for data sources and reasoning services, DRF will allow thousands of vehicles to maintain situational awareness and remain safe, regardless of the complexity of the operational environment. By enabling dynamic reasoning using deep data sources, the data and reasoning fabric will unlock the full potential of air mobility to benefit society.
And I don't know if you caught it, Andrew and Dwight, there were a few occasions where, based on your triage system, a vehicle was rerouted. You may not have caught that, but that situational awareness on the airspace.
Well, I thought that was fabulous. How can I get a copy of that? Where is that?
I can drop it in the chat for everyone. We've been working on this for about 6 months now, and
wow, who did your graphics?
We actually have a graphic designer on our team. His name's Mark Leitzel. We did not just all the framework and the conceptualizing everything, but we even did the video itself.
It's outstanding work, guys. Man,
well done. That's great.
I can visualize a similar presentation that we would offer to our fire customers.
Yeah, I think, because when we were talking through this, we all understand what we're talking about. We can visualize it. But for others, I think it takes a video like this to kind of understand, right, that situational awareness and how the ecosystem needs to really work together. And people misinterpret sometimes blockchain with crypto. No, we're talking about data and reasoning and how that can speak to each other simultaneously. That's how you have a really functional ecosystem. So I think that the visual aspect of this video so helps. So glad to hear that. I'll drop it in the chat for everyone. Take a look.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
We're at time, everyone. So when you have a moment, take a look at the white paper outline. Think about ways you can contribute, and when you're ready, throw your name on the sign up sheet. And doesn't mean you have to do anything, but it'll allow you to get in touch with some of the other teammates to collaborate and think about ideas. Thanks everybody for jumping on today. Cascade, let me know about whether we can do a talk next month. We'd absolutely love to have you and your team talk to us about SkyDrive. It would be just a real thrill for us all.
Yep, sure, no worries. Sorry about the
no
replies. Yeah, Mark was here in Japan this week, and I think he was flying back last couple of days as well. So hopefully he will get back to you soon. Yep, no worries.
That sounds great. That sounds great. Awesome. Thanks everybody. Great meeting today, and thanks for participating. We'll see you next month.
Good meeting. Thank you.